Ladies and gentlemen, speakers, friends of the media and audience online, hello everyone. Welcome to this event hosted by CCSG of the HKU, sponsored by the Hong Kong Bank Foundation, the fourth lecture of the Partnership for Sustainability Leadership in Business. I am your MC today, Mimi. Hello everyone. So today our theme is collaboration for driving circular economy in the food and beverage industry. It's not difficult to understand that concept, but how could they actually achieve it? So today we are very honored to have a lot of heavyweight guests with us here today. They are leaders in the F&B industry, for example, chefs and other restaurateurs that you may frequent, hotels and large developers. All of these people are molding the way we consume. And today they're going to participate and share and discuss on this theme because we believe that all stakeholders can play a role. And the circular economy policy emphasizes collaboration. We need participants from upstream and downstream and the consumer. So today in our event, we would first invite Dr. Winnie Law of the CCSG from HKU and Ms. Nadine Maurellet, Group General Manager, Business Diversification and Group General Counsel for the Hong Kong and Shanghai Hotels Limited, to conduct a brief sharing discussion first to talk about some practical experience in circular economy and how it's put into practice in business. And then we would have another sharing session from the world of industry to talk about how the F&B industry could revamp itself, achieving a circular economy, circular use of resources, and what's their future vision. After all, circular economy is not just about doing it for its own sake. We also need economic incentive in order to make it sustainable. Without further ado, may we invite Professor Wai-Fung Lam, Professor in Politics and Public Administration and Director for the CCSG. Professor Lam, please. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome you all. So Winnie told me that apart from the people in this room, there are actually 150 members of the audience participating online. I'm so happy to have all of you here. So we at the CCSG, through this plan, I often mispronounce it. This is the Partnership for Sustainability Leadership in Business, PSLB. We have actually a series of lectures, and this is the fourth one. Every time we focus on a very important subject, hoping to lead the conversation with the industry. So today our theme is circular economy. So we think circular economy is very important. Simply put, because the status quo is not good enough. And by that, I mean that the traditional way of organizing our economy is insufficient. It's not enough to handle sustainability challenges. For example, climate change. And the misuse of resources. And Winnie is going to talk more about this. In the traditional way of conducting the economy is a linear way. It's a one-way traffic. So in other words, we extract natural resources, we produce, we consume, and then we dispose of the waste, and that's it. And you see, this is a linear thing, one-way traffic. It's as if we could take and take and take all these resources. This is actually a rather exploitative model. We think that in the long run, this won't work. Could we use this concept of circular economy to create what we call a feedback loop into this process? So today's conversation, this lecture, is focusing on this subject itself. And most importantly, our friends from the world of the business, how could they, through making different business decisions internally, train their staff differently, how could they do various things to move and transition towards the circular economy? We think that's so important. So of course, today the focus is on the F&B industry, food and beverage, a very important industry, nothing more important than food. Apart from food and beverage is important, yes, but also food and beverage influences all facets of society in Hong Kong. And precisely because of that, it consumes a lot of resources. And therefore, if we could improve in the F&B industry, if we could transition towards the circular economy, I think this would be very valuable for the transition towards a sustainable society. So we are so delighted to be here today. We have so many people here. Well, you only see like dozens of people here, but there's actually so many more people online. A lot of people we see from the list, they are from various walks of life, officials, business, and just the average citizen. And sustainability is a group effort, right? We work at the universities, we need the world of business, and everyone needs to play a part. So we would focus on the importance of collaboration. And I was talking to this about this with Anita. You know, circular economy is not just about the industry, right? It's upstream, downstream. You have to look at the entire ecosystem. As we promote sustainable development, we hope that we could collaborate with different parts of the industry, different businesses. Okay, so without further ado, I really looking forward to the insights from our guest speakers today. I hope, how should I put this? I hope that this would be a fruitful discussion. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Professor Lam. Please be seated. So up next, we have our first panel session. So may we invite Dr. Winnie Law from the CCSG to talk about recycling of resources and her thoughts on the circular economy. Dr. Winnie Law, please. Thank you, everyone. Well, my boss, right, the director, has already summarized everything that I want to say in the next half hour to come in 3 minutes. So I'll try my best to elaborate a little bit further. Okay, so 50 years ago, let's start our story there. I wonder, have you seen this diagram before? This is a very famous report published 50 years ago. And all the way to this day, they have published like 30 million copies of this report translated into 30 plus languages. This is from a think tank called Club of Rome. It's a European think tank. So 50 years ago, they published this report titled Limits to Growth. So in this report, it mentions that this calculus. So this is actually from a professor at MIT using computerized model to arrive at this conclusion. And what it says is that let's use 200 years as the time horizon. Our resources is actually limited. But be it in terms of industrial output, commercial output, growth of human population, consumption of resources, all these things would mean that resources will become scarcer and scarcer. And at a certain point, because you need to compete for resources, so slowly but surely, population would decline because you're fighting for resources. So this is a conclusion arrived 50 years ago. And today, are they correct? Yes, I think they are. They are correct. So you see here that every year, globally speaking, we are using 1 billion metric tons worth of resources. So materials, in theory, could be recycled and reused. It should be a closed system. But unfortunately, less than 10% of these materials and these resources are actually recycled. Over 90+% of these resources were treated as waste. They were disposed of. And that creates a huge problem. And not only do you waste food, a third of the food that we produce is actually wasted. So not only are you wasting resources because we have to deal with this food waste, that has also accelerated the emissions of greenhouse gases. So this is a lose-lose situation. So in Hong Kong, how do we fare? So that was a global overview. And in Hong Kong, as we all know, our food waste problem is quite severe. Every day, we're talking about daily, right? In Hong Kong, there are 3,000 plus tons of food waste disposed of at landfills. It's not necessarily has to do with friends of the F&B industry, but a third of this 3,000 plus tons is commercial and industrial use of food waste. So in other words, a third of this is the responsibility of our F&B industries. If we divide this up, in other words, every day, just our friends at the F&B industry is wasting 90 double-decker buses worth of food, equivalent to 90 double-decker bus worth of food in terms of weight. So this is a huge number. If you look at also these one-use cutlery, right, plastic waste, we are talking about almost 4 billion pieces of disposable cutlery. And that's just 2019. That's figures from pre-COVID times, right? I think these figures are much higher today in 2022.
So let's not talk about the cooking oil, all the other elements. And a lot of the resources in the F&B business have gone to waste. So I was pondering what I should put as my first slide. I think I have to start with 50 years ago because I mean the projection is really absolutely bang on. Now, Professor Lam has said a moment ago that when using the resources, we have this linear thinking. We take the resources, we make, we consume, and then we dispose of the resources. And there is no idea of recycling, or there is no circularity at all. So I mean, in our mindset, we just chuck them away. If you go back to the rural areas, so many years ago, they didn't have this rubbish idea. I mean, everything was considered resources at the time. Now, this is a diagram to show circularity. Some students will ask, when we talk about circularity, does it mean waste management? It is indeed more than waste management. Because with waste management, we talk about 3 hours or 4 hours, but with circularity, we're talking about 9 hours. I'm not going to go into minute detail about every single hour, but let's have a look at this diagram. The most important thing with circular economy is the small circles. We have the bio resources and also the technical resources. Now, bio resources, they are the food resources or timber and so on. These are the resources that are used, and as a next step, what other departments can use the materials? And for the largest circle, it would be the recycling and reuse. Technical materials, also the same. Let's say your plant, if some equipment has broken down, you try to fix them, you try to put them to the right use before you consider whether you can cannibalize it for recycling purposes. That's basically the relationship. The priority is actually the small circles. Now, with circularity, are we really doing good? Not necessarily. We've seen some authoritative report that shows that this would bring about social and economic benefits. In this report, it says that it would drive economic growth and it would provide a lot of employment opportunities. And I don't go into detail about all the environmental benefits. If we do not waste 1/3 of the food resources, then the starvation problem will certainly be alleviated. Now, you may say that this sounds all very good. How do you actually practice circular economy? This is nothing new. Well, maybe it is new, but it's not so new that you don't know how to do it. Back in 2017, we had the UK authority that put forward the standards. It is very clear there are 6 principles, 8 steps. Basically, they are trying to drive changes in 4 areas. I don't propose to go into detail except to say that in these 6 principles, I think innovation would be the most important. I'm going to show you some examples. The other one is the value. Sorry, I'm blocking the slide. Value, let me talk about value first. In the recycling blueprint, we are trying to turn this into something of higher value. You should not treat this as some kind of compost. Let's say food waste. Normally, our idea is to put this into the machine and turn it into a compost. But this is not the smartest way of recycling. Maybe we can achieve something else that is of a higher value than fertilizer. So innovation and value are the most important element here. And so I have to walk back here. In 2018, in France, they've also put forward another protocol. They've adopted similar things that were there in the UK model. And they've also had this certification system. And indeed, many organizations have adopted this certification. Like in Italy, there are a number of public utilities that are practicing this. The recycling business in France is also having a production line to recycle the water, and they can achieve the certification under this protocol. I haven't gone so far. Our center is trying to consider how we can share the details with the trade. In fact, there are 4 areas that are relevant to the UK protocol. Now here, number 1, you should circulate or recycle the resources within your own operation. And second, you should circulate certain resources within a value chain industry. And third, you should circulate certain resources in other value chains, like you're in F&B business, you have your own value chain, and next to you, you have the fashion business, and they also have the value chain, and you can use some of the resources interchangeably. The last one is a little bit more difficult, but certainly this is in line with the business model. We cannot use this linear thinking anymore. We have to apply this circularity model to the business model. It seems that there are a lot of theories, but we have identified some examples. I mentioned the 4 different levels. I try to cite 2 examples for each of them. This is the first one, IKEA. They have a lot of eateries around the world, and they produce an awful lot of food waste. So they have identified a tech company, Winnie Law, to design what happened in the second photo. They have a bin, and or you can call this the resource recovery bin. There is a scanner, and there is a scale. The staff collect the food waste and the wasted ingredients from the kitchen, and the staff would put them into the bin, and the scanner can show this is meat, this is veggies, and this is a potato, and the weight would also be shown. Now, with all these data, they would understand that in winter, people tend to leave a lot of meat on the plate. In summer, people tend to leave a lot of potato on the plates. And in some cases, if the potatoes are too large, people would just leave them on the plate. Now, with this kind of data, they would be able to tell the kitchen, and they will then be able to do something about the situation at source to stop the wasteful use of the resources. Now, IKEA started this in 2015. They didn't do this across the board, but I mean for the eateries that they operate, they are using this to manage to reduce the waste by 54%. Now this is within their own chain. In Hong Kong, we also have some examples. And this is Hotel Icon. They have the eateries, they produce a lot of food waste. And they partner with another company and adopt this machine called Orca. Now these Orca can turn the food waste into water. It's not a solid fertilizer, it is a liquid fertilizer. The hotel icon has the green wall, and they're using the fertilizer to irrigate the garden there. And this can use the waste, food waste produced in the process. They can also save up on the water consumption as well. Now the other one is the collaboration between the upstream and downstream. Now, this is a Dutch example. The McDonald's in the Netherlands, they have to fry the French fries and the chicken and so on. They consume a lot of cooking oil, and they are trying to put on the thinking cap, and they come up with an idea. And one of the partners is a chemical engineering company. Harvey is a logistics company, and they're asking the company to collect the cooking oil and turn it into biofuel. And then they are liaising with the logistics team to see whether they can use this kind of biofuel in their transport fleet. And they are willing to cooperate because this is upgrading their facilities. The Dutch McDonald's handed over the cooking oil to company turn into biofuel, and the biofuel would then be used to the fleet of delivery vehicles. Now, this is a typical example that you can recycle the waste within the chain. Now, Patrick is here. Patrick can go into further detail later on. East Hong Kong, in Hong Kong, they have a number of restaurants, and they have lots of surplus bread, and they are partnering with a beer company to turn the surplus bread into beer. I think this is highly efficient. I've seen some information there. "35 kilos of bread can turn into 2,000 liters of beer, and the waste arising from this process can be turned into compost, and this is a zero waste process. And this is a typical example. And the beer, the bao beer, is also available in their own bar, so they generate some income as well from that. And this is more difficult, the third phase. And this is Gulkaku. It's got nothing to do with Simon. Now, in Canada, Gulkaku is using the single-use chopsticks, and they are liaising with Chop Value to collect the disposable chopsticks, and they disinfect them, and then they turn them into construction materials. Some furnishings, some furniture are produced out of these. And Gulkaku Canada procured all these furniture to be used in their own shops as well.
So you see, even though Gyukaku is in the F&B space, they're a restaurant, but the resources that they can no longer make use of, they would collaborate with another industry. So they collaborate closely and make good use of these resources. Another example from Hong Kong, right? Oh, sorry, this is an example from Singapore. Singapore first. So in Singapore, as I mentioned, this is about how they make good use of food waste. I mentioned, is all food waste suitable for making compost with? This is also a startup company with a new technology, and they found that after they deal with this food waste, the larvae could provide, the larvae of black soldier fly maggots could provide materials which has used in biomedical industries. And this is much more valuable than just mere compost. So this is the one thing that I've talked about, the value principle. So even more difficult. The entire business, right? You no longer do it with a linear thinking. We can see, for example, in the UK, this is not a large organization. This is a sort of a medium-sized restaurant. in its conception, it uses a concept of a zero waste. So everything about this restaurant is a zero waste. For example, they use direct trade. They would only procure materials and food and raw materials from farmers themselves. They do not buy any processed food. Even butter and ice cream, everything is made in their own kitchens. So basically, they make no use of any packaging at all. And my interpretation is that this is perhaps rather difficult for large corporations, but if you are a smaller or medium-sized restaurant, this is something well worth considering. And in Hong Kong, we also have a small bar with the same concept. I've actually brought this up several times. This is actually a bar in Soho. There are only 20 seats, less than 20 seats in the bar. And the idea behind this business is to achieve a recycling of resources. So in its mode of manufacturing, they adopt this thinking. For example, when they buy alcohol, they tell the suppliers, I don't want your packaging. I have recyclable packaging. I provide you with said packaging, and you could just refill it for me. And in terms of their food materials, right? Or the leftover ingredients, they could use it again and brew cocktails, brew alcohol, brew materials for their cocktails. And they also collaborate with restaurants nearby, Mexican restaurants nearby. They try to use less ice, right? Ice takes energy, ice takes water. They got a lot of avocado pits from Mexican restaurants. They sterilize it, clean it, and they use that avocado pit to replace ice. So all these are interesting ideas. And because this is also a very successful business, they have reduced their waste to 3 kilograms a day. I think this is a very successful case indeed. So I've mentioned several examples, and there are like some key points I'd like to share with all of you. Firstly, we should start with a small-scale pilot project to test your system to see how far it can go. And secondly, you should clarify everyone's roles and responsibilities. For example, when you work with partners upstream and downstream, what are your roles? And furthermore, you should engage with like-minded organizations. That's quite clear. You need to conduct performance reviews, like keep trying, keep reviewing. That's very important, and you need to set a KPI. You need to know how far you are along. And finally, you must know that there must be an incentive, a benefit for different people with different roles. And our thinking is that people in the F&B industry should be the leader because you guys use a lot of resources. You have so many business partners you could collaborate with. So that's it from me. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Winnie. Okay, so I believe that we've all learned a lot about circular economy. But of course, we would like to learn more about how we could make use of these concepts in Hong Kong. So I'd like to invite our second guest from the Hong Kong and Shanghai Hotels Limited Company, Ms. Nadine Maurellet, Group General Manager of Business Diversification and Group General Counsel. Nadine, please.
Use English to address everyone. My name is Nadine Morley, and I'm the Group General Manager for Business Diversification. I'm a lawyer by training. You might ask why, why I'm here today. I've known Winnie for some time. We were searching for some interesting sites for a retreat, hotel retreat in Hong Kong. And so that's how I got to know Winnie. And I guess where my sharing comes from is the genesis of partnerships, collaborations, from that to if the collaboration fails or if there are any legal issues, the ending of the partnerships will also come to me as well. So I'm part of the Hong Kong and Shanghai Hotels Limited. We are the owner and operator of Peninsula Hotels Worldwide. Right, this is our new hotel in London. So a bit of background. So I think some of you might have been to the Peninsula already. We are Asia's oldest hotel company. We were established in 1866. We are very, very small. We have hotel operations and commercial property operations in Asia, in Europe, and in the US. Right. We have other businesses as well. The Repulse Bay, where we have a few restaurants, club facilities. We also own the Peak Tower and the Peak Tram, which are prominent tourism assets in Hong Kong. We have Peninsula Merchandising. The most notable product we have is the mooncake, which causes a lot of headaches for me personally every year. And also we also manage a few clubs around the world, including golf courses. So we are luxury, we are old, and we are hospitality. A lot of people might say, well, you know, that's an oxymoron in itself. How can you combine sustainability with luxury? So, sorry. Right, so we have been looking at sustainability for over a decade. We started in 2007, and we have 3 pillars. First and foremost, we are in the business of enhancing guest experiences. That's the first pillar. We empower, or we like to empower people. And our third pillar is we like to enrich our communities. So against this, in the past 2 years or past 3 years, we have been living in very uncertain, very disruptive world. I think you all agree that we've had, you know, nightmares turn into reality. We, you know, go to the supermarkets, you know, and face empty shelves. War is around us in Europe. Extreme weather conditions in the world have meant we've had to grapple with food shortage, supply chain issues, and transportation failures. Above all, we are all dealing with a shortage in labor situation around the world. So against this background, we looked at our vision, our sustainability vision, and we updated it. And I believe that we have moved from an age where, you know, everything is abundant to an age where everything has become scarce. We need to grapple with the questions and the big what ifs. So what if our raw materials do not arrive at our kitchens? What if we don't have power? What if our kitchens are flooded? What if, you know, the labor that we rely on do not show up? What if they decide to join other industries, which there's a lot of, people, employees leaving our industry day in and day out. So we've had to rethink our business model, deal with the big what ifs, contingency plan, and really adopt a different way of conserving. I guess everyone here is, you know, dealing with more limited resources. How can we as a company regenerate the resources that we have? In my role, I search for more value within the value chains that exist within our company, and also identify new partners, new collaborators outside of the business models that we're familiar with. How can we harness these type of resources and still be able to generate a profit and continue our business? So So my sharing today, I'm going to focus on 3 case studies, 1 failed case and 2 successful cases. Oh, sorry, actually, I forgot to address the second point. So mitigation of risk is definite, it's the minimum, it's what our stakeholders expect us to do. Our customers are more and more vigilant, I would say, in figuring out their own consumption and the impact of their consumption on the planet. And as Winnie has said just now, I think as an industry, in the hotel industry, real estate industry, in the F&B industry, we owe it to the planet, owe it to our society, owe it to our own families even, to adopt this new thinking of how we can regenerate as companies, as businesses, as a society, as a whole. So this, the first case study I want to share is our journey with waste diversion and also how we deal with waste regeneration. So I haven't included any stats in here because it's a failed case. So we started in 2010 when the Peninsula Hong Kong, I'll just address it as Pen Hong Kong, first purchased our food digester. And so we trialed it for a couple of years, but for capacity issues, it couldn't consume the amount of waste that we wanted it to consume. So after a trial period, initial success, and eventually acknowledging that there are limitations with these type of machines. In 2015, so after 5 years, we decided to donate the digesters to local food banks to allow them to make use of the machines. And we decided to look for alternatives. So we then collaborated with a food waste processor, and we had to pay the transportation cost. We had to train our staff members to segregate, and they're pretty good now. They're in terms of segregating and washing. But there again, I mean, as a business, we have to pay quite a hefty fee to the food waste processing enterprise. And actually, I mean, it was 7,000 Hong Kong dollars per month, which is actually not a lot of money if you think about it from a big corporation point of view. Having said that, I mean, we've had COVID, we have social distancing measures, and the catering business have been really, really hard hit. And I believe that a lot of small, medium enterprises were not able to pay the $7,000 per month transportation cost. And therefore, unfortunately, in 2021, this food waste processing company folded. So they didn't have sufficient funds. And so we again had to look for alternatives. So in the end, we're now sending our food waste to OPARC, which is a government initiative. Initially, we also have to pay transportation cost. And as a result of the pandemic, a lot of restaurants were not able to send the waste because of transportation cost issues. And so the government has piloted a free transportation program to allow businesses to transfer their food waste to OPARC And we are collaborating with the Hong Kong Green Council and also the Hong Kong Productivity Council, and they are helping us to transport the food waste to Old Park. So in conclusion, the first case it's ever evolving, I would say. We're dealing with more and more regulations. We are dealing with more and more cost. So I think the legislation, I mean, I was talking to Anita, the legislation part of it and the government pursuing this is really, really important for Hong Kong, and educating, the business and having these type of forums where there is best practice sharing, there is knowledge sharing is really important for the F&B industry in Hong Kong. So this is so the first of two successful cases. For this one, we partnered with the Nature Conservancy, which is an NGO, Save Our Shells project. So we didn't know that oyster shells and other types of shells can be regenerated. And so Nature Conservancy approached us, and they said, "Hey, well, you've got so many restaurants, you serve so many oysters. Actually, Hong Kong does consume quite a lot of oysters. It's in our culture and in our heritage to do so." And so they actually came to do a pilot study at the Repulse Bay. And they were, very open, they were very transparent, they were subject matter experts, they knew what they were talking about. And upon questioning them, they were able to understand our operations, understand where our challenges were. We had the benefit of a very large back of house area, the refrigeration capabilities, the sorting, the cleaning capabilities as well. And they provided the technical know-how, and we provided of course, the shells to them. And so they were able to calculate and give us a business plan very early on. KPIs, a lot of KPIs, and the roadmap with interim goals. We identified a few key persons, chefs in this case, chefs who didn't know what to do with the waste in the first place, but upon learning about this program and the benefits, these regenerated oysters can bring to the marine ecosystem, they were highly engaged, and they took it upon themselves to expand this program. And so oyster reefs are depleting in Hong Kong, and the Nature Conservancy, they not only collect the shells, they then clean and use natural processes to weather the shells, and then they replant them in the Hong Kong waters. I think they are in Lau Fao Shan and Tolo Harbour doing this project. One key piece of information that I would like to share, this project was fully funded already, so we didn't have to contribute extra resources. Of course, operationally, we had to make changes for the kitchen staff, we had to train, but since our kitchen staff have already been trained in segregating the food waste into different bins, they provided the additional bins of various sizes. It was operational very easy to do so. And so, yeah, it's still going very strong. And we, at a very early stage, got to track the benefits of this project. The pilot at the peninsula, at the Repulse Bay was successful, And so we then rolled it out to the Peninsula Hong Kong, where we have 8 other F&B outlets. And so as a result of this project, we've been able to return or to donate around 3,000 kilograms of shells to Nature Conservancy. And we have been introducing Nature Conservancy to other like-minded organizations and hotel businesses in Hong Kong, so that they can scale their business and which hopefully will result in even more cost savings for us. This is the second successful case study. So as you will expect, as we are a hotel business, we produce a lot of textile waste, in this case, bed linens, table linens, pillowcases, and towels. And so we were thinking, how can we divert the waste? Instead of sending these to landfills, is there any way we can upcycle our bottle, our textile waste? And so we partnered with a few organizations. Some of them are in Hong Kong, some of them are in the Philippines. First of all, we partnered with Antil Fabric Gallery. They helped us to upcycle textiles and work with communities in the Philippines to transform waste into useful products. We worked with a Hong Kong designer to come up with what is the use case? What can we do with the discarded linen? So this Hong Kong designer helped us to design a teddy bear that can be transformed into a bathrobe for kids. Why is it yellow? This is really interesting. We worked with St. James Settlement to dye the linens into yellow. And I'll give a prize to anyone who can guess the material we used to dye the fabric. Any idea? Sorry? Curry. Wow, okay. No. Turmeric. No? It's a vegetable. Pumpkin. Yeah, all these are very good guess. Yes, Winnie. So we use onion skins. Yeah, onion skins from our Repulse Bay restaurant to dye the linen into a very attractive color. Yeah. So in this case, all the logistics was done in-house by our sustainability team. We mapped out all the different processes and tried to connect as many dots as possible. From the first idea of trying to make something of value out of the linens, that was our first key objective and key question. We then we were able to think of other uses which created a social impact, including selling some of these teddy bears and raising funds for Oxfam Hong Kong. We also segregated some teddy bears to put into Box of Hope gift sets that benefited the underprivileged children in Hong Kong. So by collaborating with multiple partners, we were able to tick quite a few boxes for this project. So in conclusion, I have just three takeaways for you, my sharing. The first one is the notion of scarcity, and where we used to think, oh, everything is abundant, Hong Kong is abundant. the world is abundant to grappling with issues of scarcity in the world, how can we as corporations, how can we as individuals working in our corporations influence our colleagues around the group to make use and to adopt the 9 hours is that the 9 hours that can add value not only to the business bottom line but also help our planet regenerate and replenish itself. The second one is for people who are maybe social enterprises or NGOs or advocates out there, ESG advocates out there. Always think of the business case for your clients. Know the subject matter really, really well. Be able to demonstrate the technical knowledge and demonstrate the business case and the data and the metrics to track performance for your clients. And the third one, sorry, I've managed this far not to refer to my notes. The third one is, yes, final, is education. And then I just want to thank CCSG for organizing this talk. I think it's through these sharings that we all can learn from one another, and through just connections and introductions, we can create more and more pilot projects and create as an industry, hopefully create the societal impact that Winnie very, very helpfully shared with us this morning. So thank you very much for your time and for hearing my sharing. Thank you.
Thank you. 唔該晒 Nadine，唔該晒你嘅。
Thank you very much, Nadine. Indeed, this is a really wonderful example for our reference. Now we're going to have the dialogue with our industry leaders to talk about the circularity strategies and so on. Darwin will be the moderator for this session. Let's give a big round of applause to our guests. Anita and Little Cheng, Executive Committee and Honorary Member of the Hong Kong Chef Association. Mr. Patrick Ho, Deputy Head Sustainable Development of Swire. Professor Simon Wong, BBSJP Chairperson and CEO of LH Group. And last but not least, Mr. Woody Chan, Senior CSR and Sustainability Manager of Food Panda. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Darwin. Thank you very much. We're moving on to the dialogue with the industry leaders. I'm grateful thanks to all the guests for being with us to share with us how we can move down the path of circularity and how we can take advantage of innovation to move in this direction. And also, we should be able to achieve zero waste and reduce our carbon footprint. And all these sustainable goals are long-term goals that should be achieved. I think over the years, the trade and the consumers have had a pretty good awareness and understanding of this subject. I think today's discussion should not be stuck with the why. I think we should focus our attention more on how we're going to achieve this faster, how we can scale up, and how we can make it more effective. I'm sure our guests must have a lot of experience behind their belt, and they must have a lot of observations to share with us in this session. But time is finite. We have about 45 minutes or thereabout. And I'd like to give you a framework to talk about.
Perhaps we could discuss it in three different ways. So in our keynote speech, we heard about the importance of cross-industry collaboration and how could you collaborate across the entire value chain to enhance efficiency of resources allocation. And another thing that everybody would like to know is that what are the conditions and what are the prerequisites necessary? For example, in the industry, in the world of business, do we need to engage in some systematic change in order to accelerate progress? Or could it be a more innovative business model? Is that what we need? And thirdly, perhaps we could look ahead, right? Like, what good can this circular economy model bring? Would it be a new market, and new roles, new jobs, or a new direction of development? And the recent policy address of Hong Kong, we've heard, right? How could we consolidate our advantages and to develop a new industry? How could we attract diverse talents? You know, I think we could discuss the topic in these few aspects. So let us warm up first. Perhaps you could introduce yourselves to talk about one or two examples of what type of circular economy related projects that you've done in your capacity, which are most innovative and most able to exemplify the idea of a circular economy. Perhaps Anita, you could start first. Well, actually, I was talking about this just now. You may think that circular economy is something that a lot of people already know about. And a lot of people may have heard about this topic, but in the industry, if you delve deep, like if you ask people if they actually know this concept well, right? The 9 Rs, right? The 9 or how many Rs? I don't think we're there yet. I think that these days in the industry, when we talk about sustainable development, we talk about that a lot. And for a lot of our local practitioners, sustainable development is not something that they would reject, but well, they would agree with it, but they would also think, oh, it's expensive. Could it be expensive? Would it would it mean people would be out of work, right? They have so many concerns. It's not as easy to understand as people may think. But if you ask me what could be done, there's a lot to be done. Winnie said just now, the IKEA case, right? In the IKEA case, if we look at it from afar, it's a bit passive, right? And by that I mean that you have something left over, you scan, right? Then right, ideally you have no leftovers. So right now we are educating our chefs, saying that we don't start big, right? We talk about your role, like what could you do in your role. You don't have to be very, very creative. We go back to the basics. Uh, you know, in the past, you could have select a portion size, right? You could select a smaller portions. Now you don't, right? So how could we communicate with the customer at our restaurants? This is not innovation. This is just a good practice, right? People are eating less and less. Why don't they get to select portion size? If they don't like potatoes, why can't they skip the potato, right? So this is a matter of communication. Sometimes we do not need to complicate things. We could just think about what's happening in our surroundings, what we could do to just improve the situation around us. Well, we don't have to follow the order. Like whoever wants to jump in, please do. Let me try. So thank you for the invitation. I'm from Swire Properties. I'm in charge of sustainable development. So overall, when it comes to recycling resources, one of the very important concepts in Swire Properties is that we have a strategy. In 2016, we have set a Sustainable Development 2030 vision strategy, and circular economy or resource circularity. Both are key focuses of our plan. And we understand this very well. When we build properties, when we operate properties, or when we rent out properties, a lot of our tenants are restaurants. A lot of these things generate, the stuff that's generated in that process are not necessarily waste. A lot of it could be recycled and reused, and its value could be recycled. So one of the very important things is to work across different industries, or the entire collaboration throughout the entire value chain is very important. So let me give a couple of examples where we have put a lot of focus on. One is our Green Kitchen initiative. So we at Swire Properties, our sustainable development department and our rentals department and our technical departments joined forces to develop this initiative. It responds to one thing. We found that a lot of F&B, a lot of restaurants, a lot of our tenants, they want to do sustainable development, yes, but their facilities do not permit them to do so. Perhaps they do not have enough space and they have already bought equipment. They are not necessarily very environmental friendly equipment and they lack the resources and the technical support to do that. So we as the owner, even though we rent our property out, but that's not the extent of our relationship. In terms of sustainability, we could do more, we could do better. So in our program, we have designed a lot of what we call green kitchen renovation plans and guidance. So we help them talk to the designer. How could we, in terms of like when you use power, use water, and management of smoke in your kitchens, and we use innovative ways to recycle resources. We have extensive initiatives, and these designers could easily incorporate these ideas into their restaurants. And we found that it's very effective. A lot of restaurants just have no idea where to begin, and we could support them. And in that process, our technical team works closely with our clients to make sure that in the end, what they have is fit for purpose, and we help them do auditing as well. And we are able to give them a certificate. There's like 1 leaf, 2 leaf, and 3 leaf. 3 leaf is the highest honor. And in Hong Kong, we have approximately 70 restaurants with green kitchen initiative certification. And this is very well received because this can also improve the temperature in the kitchen, so the chefs has an easier time working. And a lot of their kitchens use the concept of green as the concept behind their restaurants, and they walk their talk. Like they could tell their clients that, oh, we have designed our kitchen, our restaurant according to such principles. And the other example is plastic, right? And the government is talking about this, right? They may legislate to restrict the use of plastic cutlery. By year 2030, we will kick into phase 1. So let's take our Taikoo Place, our business complex in Yuchong as an example, at Quarry Bay, for example. A lot of people buy coffee, right? And you know that on your coffee there's a bit of plastic lining, so it's harder to recycle. And every year there's over 1 million of these coffee cups. This is a very severe waste problem. We really want to solve this. So we collaborate with a startup company called Muse. That company has developed a smart coffee cup recycling system. It's not like using paper or using other biodegradable plastics. It's not that anymore. We're talking about a reusable cup. And right now in Quarry Bay, we have collaborated with 10 of our coffee shop tenants, and they would use the same app. So when the client is there, they use the app, they scan the smart cup, and then they can enjoy their cup of coffee. So let's say after they went through the meeting, they have to return their cups, and there are collection boxes well located throughout our premises, so they could easily return their cups and scan again. The entire flow is very smooth, and we find that this is very effective. In about the 1 year we have launched, approximately we have lended out about 15,000 such coffee cups, reducing the pressure on our landfills. So we hope through such initiatives, we could expand it to more kitchens, more tenants, and that requires all the support we can have. Well, Patrick and I, our roles are so different, right? Because in Patrick's title just says Sustainable Development Director, right? Not me. I'm a businessman. So Patrick could focus 100% on sustainable development, but my responsible is to make my company profitable. So our roles are different. Despite that, but I've been working in F&B for 15 years now. Before that, in my past life, I was a civil engineer. And over the past 15 years, I've actually participated in sustainable development quite early on, inadvertently. My father worked in a Chinese restaurant, so 10 plus years ago, I started to stop using shark fin. I want to use sustainable ingredients to deliver quality cuisine to my clients, and that's already a bit of cross collaboration, right? So before I give concrete examples, I really want to say, because I am a businessman, so when I do any sustainable development, I adhere to two principles. That's my checkpoint. Firstly, I think some of these not very popular measures are not genuinely environmentally friendly. What I mean, let me give you an example. I think, you may disagree, but I think this. I think, for example, organic food. You can eat it, yes, it'll be healthier, you might be happier, but it cannot help save the earth. Why is that? Because after all, not a lot of people eat organic food. The reason why a tiny globe could sustain 8 billion people is because people discovered fertilizers, discovered pesticides. Otherwise, the earth can only sustain 500 million people. If I'm rich, I want to tell people that I am very environmentally friendly, I'm green, you can't eat organic food. But if all 8 billion people on earth wants to eat organic food, 7.5 billion of them will die. So as a businessman in my company, I would not choose to do such things. Secondly, the most important thing about environmental friendliness is sustainability, right? My company has also to be sustainable, right? That's how I feel. So whenever you need to burn cash to be sustainable, right? Like if it's an initiative that I have to pump money in every year in order to sustain it, I do not choose to do that. I would prefer an initiative which could help the environment and help my business, or even benefit my business. That's what I want to do. So I have set my limits here, and I try to work within those limits. Let me give you two examples. First one, it's called an initiative titled Food is Living. So, we generate a lot of food waste in F&B industry. And we have these offcuts, right? And apart from offcuts, there are also the good cuts, right? I don't know if people divide it this way, right? Anita, don't make fun of me, but we understand it this way, right? The chef, when they cut something, when they cut the ingredients up, the good cuts are clean, are nice, and the cuts which are not as valuable, when we don't serve the customers, those are the off cuts. So I don't want to give the impression to my clients and my employees that we are giving food waste to our clients, right? So I tell my chefs, your blade decides whether it's an off cut or a good cut, right? So we call it food is living, right? If you haven't thrown it out yet, it's still alive. Food is still alive. Do not call it food waste. Do not waste it. So we have an internal competition. We ask all our chefs to organize to make a dish, to participate in that competition. We use a lot of these cuts to serve food served to the employees. So we'd add one extra dish with these cuts, right? And some of the dishes are failures, right? Like some of this that didn't work. And there was one quite interesting called sweet and sour pork guloyok. Why is that? So because we sell a lot of mushrooms, right? We use the stems of these mushrooms, mix them out with the meat, and we call it guloyok, right? That's quite interesting because gu means mushroom in Cantonese, so it's a pun. Another example of offcuts, right? So when I went to Lok Fu, we have like a buffet type of restaurant there, and a lot of green groups think that buffets is a waste, right? Because you waste a lot of food in buffets. And I saw this, I witnessed this myself. A family of 4, I think they have wasted food enough for 6 people. The food waste itself is enough for 6 people. Of course, I'm mad, I'm angry, right? It's not just about environmental friendliness, right? I'm also making a loss here, right? So as a CEO, I cannot allow this to keep happening. So I go back to the office, I talk to my colleagues to think about how we deal with that. And we have a new scheme called the red and green card. We have actually done it for several years. It's a simple technique, right? This does not require high technology. When you get seated, we would give our clients a red card. Usually it's a girl, a waitress. We tell the client, we hope that we could eat everything. If you can, it would be better for the environment. And if you do, we would give you a green card. So after you eat everything, if you have not wasted any food, you will get a green card. So if you have a green card, next time you come back, $10 off. And more importantly, every green card we have distributed, we would donate $5 to a green group. So every year we are able to donate some money to green groups. So we give them like tens of thousands of dollars. And the most important thing is that this improves our gross profit margin. Not by a lot, but like 3%-ish. It's already quite a lot. 3% is not bad. And that becomes net profit, right? So we see it on our books and also in the restaurants. I've heard like two big men, right? They raise their hand asking for several dishes of more beef. And my friend says, look, I've had enough, right? Like, make sure you can finish everything. And I've heard a mother say, well, remember, she told you that you have to finish all the food you get, right? Like, make sure that you only take what you can eat, right? So these are good real-life examples.
Simon, you raised two questions. Indeed, we can consider these from two angles. Let's take the last one first. People overorder their food. In a buffet setting, people just take the food indiscriminately. Indeed, I think technically there is something that can be done. Like the tray, I think you should use a smaller plate. Second, and I mean, all the plates should be smaller, and they would have a happy feeling, because I mean they would only collect more food when they finish the one that they have. Now, for the first question, the ingredients of higher quality or more inferior quality, there is no such thing for the chef, because at the very beginning, if you want to buy a chicken, for instance, you have to think about what you do with the wings, what you do with the bottom, and so on. So to my colleagues, there's no such thing as superior or inferior quality. We use the ingredients to the best potential. So this is manual redesigning. Absolutely. Woody. Yes, let's hear from Woody before we discuss more. I'm from Food Panda. I think you know what Food Panda does. Food Panda has created a big impact. Like Winnie said, we have these disposable plastic cutlery, 4 billion tons of such a cutlery are consigned to the landfill. We started this eco-friendly plan. We buy these the food containers and that made of bio materials. We liaise with the WWF and other NGOs for these environmentally friendly packaging. They cannot be recycled. They cannot be used anymore. So we are thinking how we can create circularity here. So about 2 months ago, thanks to ECF and WWF, we launched a recycle lunchbox scheme. It's like the coffee cup idea. I mean, we would provide the recyclable lunch boxes to the restaurants, and the patrons can choose this kind of lunch boxes, and once they're done with them, they will return these to the vending machine that we have in Central Admiralty. Wan Chai, we have 9 such vending machines, and they get $10 off coupon from Food Panda. We would impose a deposit, $10 each, and they can turn it in at the vending machine and collect the money back. And we would be responsible for the delivery, for the transportation. We collect the boxes and cleanse them, disinfect them. Twice a week, we return them to the shops and close the loop. Now, actually, the upstream and the downstream can be involved in the circularity. I'm grateful to the Swire. We have a vending machine at the Swire property. Yes, we'd like to have more. Darwin also mentioned Another systemic change. We can see that a lot of the restaurants, about 50 restaurants are taking part, and they do experience their own difficulties with regard to these recyclable lunch boxes, because at peak time they have to check the bill, and they don't have a lot of space for storage, and they also experience difficulties with transportation, the delivery, and so on. So we are considering whether all takeaway orders can use these kind of recyclable lunch boxes. And we are exploring the level of deposit. That would create a systemic change. And the restaurants don't have to think about the storage. Every single lunchbox can be recyclable. This is the path that we'd like to move down going forward. But if I may pursue this, I think I have to pursue this. Why? Because what Woody said is actually my dream. I am a chairman of the Environmental Campaign Committee. I talk to the officials a lot. I'm from the F&B business. For these lunchboxes to be successful, there's only one way, and that's we need to have a lot of resources. Either it is funded by the developers or funded by the government. This has to be territory-wide. In Hong Kong, we must have the standardized lunch box. Every single eatery would use this kind of lunch box, only one single dimension. And this will be given to the eateries. You don't have to take the boxes. You don't have to pay a deposit. And you only use this kind of lunch box. And upon finishing, you just drop them into the collection boxes. Otherwise, it'll be just a game to make you feel good. It may not necessarily help the environmental cause. This may be a pilot. At our committee, we've done some pilots at 2 points, Disco Park and also in Wan Chai, the revenue tower. We have 2 people sitting there, and they would collect the finished boxes, and I mean the RTHK would come and film them. And they interview me. I don't really want to talk too much about that, because this is not on any particular scale. But that's only a pilot. So Woody has got a point there. I think we have to take this further and scale it up. Right, I've got a question here. If we want to have the buy-in from the consumers, if we can change the awareness, do you think the consumers are ready for that? Are they up for it? When you have to make it convenient for people to return the lunch boxes. Our vending machine are at premium location, Central Market, Swire Building, Fashion Walk, Leighton Street, Times Square, and whatnot. If we really want to scale it up across the board, you have to have the collection point at the MTR station. I mean, if that can happen, the awareness will be heightened. Woody, I would suggest one place, the Taikoo Place. Coffee cup, I mean, it is a good enough example. The segment is also important. At Taikoo Place, we're dealing with the office workers. They have really strong awareness. If you don't do it, they will complain. Why don't we provide that? There are so many coffee shops and they're facing this problem. Of course, they have to consider the costs. But indeed, there is a segment of consumers who are highly aware of that. There's a groundswell of support among them. So we are really re-engineering the process. We hope that in Taikoo Place, we would be able to create this sustainable kind of place. I think from the developers' point of view, we can make connection with the eateries, the chefs, Food Panda, and so on. And we can create the right ecosystem there. We don't have to wait for the policy to come through. We can trial this out. I think we are trying to give it a bit of a push, and this is meeting the needs of society. Yes, this is what we talk about, the cross-sectoral collaboration. We should start with the community, and that would be the fastest route. All right then. We've cited some good examples to re-engineer the change. I think let's come back to our trade. Let's say the enterprises, in terms of the business management, that they have to do a lot of things, that they have to train up the pool of talent, and also will the corporate culture be conducive to this? Well, I'd like to put this to you, Simon. You're boss of your company. How are you going to push this corporate culture? Right? You can ask the question whether Hong Kong people are ready. From Patrick's example, if you educate them, they would be ready. A Taiko Place, they're so educated. Education has been a success. I think Hong Kong people that I know are really environmentally friendly as long as they don't have to pay anything extra. If they have to pay something extra and if too much hassle, they would resist it. I think you have to make it accessible, make it convenient, cut out the hassle altogether. I've got an example in my company that is a success. The drinking straw, for instance. A couple of years ago, we tried the scheme on drinking straw. I like drinking straw. I like water sports myself. There was a water bird that died, and I mean, inside his gut, it was full of plastic. I mean, it wasn't just one single photo. Now, you've seen the turtle. I mean, inside full of plastic. I mean, the first question is, in my company, there are still 1 million plastic straws in stock, and these are pretty expensive. And eventually, we found these the baguettes kind of drinking straw. I mean, if you give them away for free, I'll be sustaining a loss. So we eventually decided to have to impose $2 for a straw, but I ended up with loads of complaints flooding in, and they are complaining that you're such a big company, is just charging for the drinking straw. I mean, the thing is, you can drink something even without the straw. It's not like chopsticks, but it doesn't feel good to be scolded. And then we decided that if you do away with the straw, that it will be $10 off. I didn't mark it up. I mean, let's say $19 per drink. It ended up being $9 per drink, and nobody came in complaining. We saved something like 2 million drinking straws. The patrons were very happy. I sold more soft drink, $9 per cup, but they would drink more. Now, for the 500,000 drinking straws, what do we do with them? We didn't consign them to the landfills. We gave them away to the old folks' homes, because they do need the plastic drinking straws. I mean, we send them for medical purposes. I know I didn't answer your question. You talked about the staff members. But what I said, we need the cooperation of the staff members as well. But I like to talk about the failures. Success stories are good. I mean, I have a lot of success stories, and I am into the environmental course. I would like to cite this as a typical example of failure. When I did the Chinese restaurant, I promoted the shark's fin free kind of banquet. I attracted a lot of media attention. I mean, I was part of the course to ban the shark's fin. Now, I had an annual dinner in my company one year. My officer had a menu with shark's fin in it. And I said I was a failure. I've been trying so hard. I've been trying to influence people to ditch shark's fin, but my lieutenant, I can't even influence him. I mean, I was almost on the verge of tears. And he said, "Don't do that, Mr. Wong. It's because your father is really fond of shark's fin."
Well, if I have to deal with my father, it's up to my daughter, right? My daughter can influence her grandfather, try to eat less shark fin. You know, why do I say this? Like, as a boss, you could try your best to influence your employees, but do not assume that you could influence them 100%. Do your best, and that's it, right? Like, I want to hear from you your successful examples. Anita, how did you change the mindset of your chefs? Well, forget influencing them for a moment, right? Most people, as I've said, no one opposes a greener lifestyle. It's just that people don't know what to do. Hong Kong is a special place. Like 95% of our stuff is imported, which means that most people do not have the concept of seasons, right? Like, if you don't have it in Italy, you can find it in Australia, right? So you could always satisfy all our needs. So the first thing we have to do is to educate. We have to educate people about seasonality, local produce. You know, uh, you know, carbon emissions is just a small problem in the entire value chain, right? The most important thing is the knowledge. We have to admit that a lot of us in this industry, we are humble beginners. Like we don't have a lot of experience, a lot of expert knowledge. If you talk about very very important the subjects, it's very difficult for them, right? They won't sit here and listen to this lecture. Try our best to tell them things that they could understand. What does seasonality mean, right? For example, Chinese cuisine. I'm not saying that you have to eat like environmentally friendly seafood, right? All I'm asking is avoid eating endangered species, right? That's okay, right? And WWF have a website specifically for Hong Kong. For example, one of the local fish like a Lofuban, the tiger grouper, that's in danger. So we ban it from our banquets, right? Make sure we can eat it once it's no longer endangered. There's so many types of groupers to choose from. So conceptually, we would give these people knowledge, right? That's the important thing. We have to educate them first. I'm not saying that you have to be an environmental ambassador. All we're saying is that you must be a responsible chef. That's easier for them to understand. Well, Patrick, do you have anything to add? We have a very engaging campaign. I could share that with Simon. So in our office, we have a lot of colleagues, and to be honest, not everyone is as compliant about environmental friendliness, as about sustainability as others. So over the past couple of years, we have run a campaign. It's actually a competition. So this competition is about who is best at recycling. And after all, convenience is a huge factor. So we use some technology. There's another startup company. That company is called Spare It. We use technology. It's a smart weight, a smart electronic balance. So we need HR admin office colleagues to work with us, and needs a lot of people to help with that. So all of the recycle and trash bins of our offices have been reconfigured. The layout is reconfigured, and every person has like a trash bin, and every other person, every few people has one recyclable bin. So we change it all. We have, removed all trash bins. In other words, you can't just throw away your trash that conveniently. So instead, we have more centralized recycling stations, so you can recycle, plastics, metals, paper, etc. So after this reconfiguration of our offices, we have electronic balances to weigh in real time the amount of waste generated in the offices, the amount of waste recycled in our offices. And when our colleagues go into the pantry, you could see the performance of your team, of your office. And we actually have the same competition with our tenants, right? We would really like to bring this benefit to our tenants as well. There are dozens of offices from our tenants, play this same game, so you could see how your team performs in real time, right? So we create this positive feedback loop. Everyone could, want to win in this competition for your own team, for your own company, and they start to think, oh, do I have to create this waste? When you print something, do I have to print that many pages? This is from a company, from a top-down approach, because everyone has to do it, and no one has any trash bins to use. And of course, some people start to bring their own plastic bags, but that's okay. Either way, we could influence their behavior. And they would like to think about, do I really have to create this piece of waste in the first place? And in the end, this initiative was a huge success. The overall recycle rate has increased. It's almost reached like 40+% in the participating offices. The amount of trash generated has dropped by double digits as well. So in this campaign, I really feel that colleague engagement through this fun competition, this is something perhaps we could try, right? Everyone wants to try, everyone to play, everyone wants to win. We think that this is worth, referencing. Well, on the topic of awareness, I'd like to go back to my reusable lunchbox example. We see that the owners and operations of these restaurants, the relationship between the chefs and the packaging staff is very important. For operations, with a closer relationship, they really are supportive of this plan. And through their owners, through a dialogue, they would understand why we have to do this. But there are also restaurants. They have a less close of a relationship than others. So on the contrary, they would tell the boss that, I don't want to do this. This is a bother. I don't know why you're doing this. So even though the owner really buys this, they really want to do this, they want to work with us, but there is some pushback they experience from their colleagues. So that's the point I would like to raise. The relationship is very important as well. So stakeholder engagement, or as Anita said, education. How could you share your experiences through different channels? It is very important. Perhaps at this point, we could open up the floor for questions from the audience on site and audience online. Perhaps I could start with the audience right here. Do you have any quick questions for our guests? Yes. The gentleman on the third row. Hello. Thank you very much. Thank you to all our guests for sharing your successes and failures. I'm Alan. I'm from Food Grace, and I'm a member of the industry. I'm a part of an NGO called Social Food Recycling Group. So we do a lot of training, including training for the F&B industry. So sometimes when we do engage in such training, a lot of people, well, from sustainability manager all the way to like junior people, for example, in Café du Corral, they would send some managers for us to train. This inspired me to think. Just now, the moderator asked if your employees are ready, if your colleagues are ready. That's a great question. Sometimes when we work on sustainability, a lot of these things are top-down, saying that we have a framework, we have a very systematic way of doing it. But in my training experience, I've discovered that what I do see is, imagine this, food and beverage industry. What kind of industry is this in Hong Kong? It's very labor intensive. It's very intense, there's a huge turnover on the front lines. And whenever you ask our colleagues to do anything, there would be pushback. I think Simon has similar experiences. So after this training, the colleagues would say, the employees would say, yeah, I know this. I want to do that as well. But the company needs to give us more space to do that. I often hear from like small to medium-sized enterprises, particularly medium-sized restaurants, I work so long hours. I have a difficult job enough for very little money, and you ask me to do this. So perhaps you could learn to communicate with the manager and the chef, but the servers on the front lines, they would have a lot of pushback. They say that they have no room to do that. So I think from top down, you have to give more room for these employees. It's a very difficult industry, the F&B industry. I'm not in this industry, but they would tell me that during COVID, right, my restaurant can't even survive. So sometimes when it comes to execution, our group tries to help people to do ESG, and during that ESG, what room, what infrastructure must we give to our colleagues in order to do that properly? So sometimes I think, why isn't Old Park more of a success? Because these restaurants, they don't have enough room to, in the first place, right? If you ask people to segregate their waste, etc., all that, there's no food waste machine anyway. So that's why I think sometimes when there are policies, but the policies do not work, that's why. So when you look at this problem from a top-down perspective, that's one thing, but you have to think about it from the chef's perspective, from the waiter's perspective, from the frontline workers' perspective. Like if you're ready, if everything's ready, I think the plans would work out better. I hope that you would have some comments to that. Thank you for your questions. Like, I think he raised several pain points like time, space, skill set, right? So Simon and Anita, perhaps you'd like to respond to that. Yeah, that's 100% correct. It sounds very romantic. Actually, when you do it, it's painful, right? That's always the case, particularly when it comes to food waste in restaurants. That's the worst job ever. Like trash is already dirty. You have to segregate it. It's so busy, right? You have so much work already. So food waste doesn't last long neither because it starts to smell, it attracts pests, and the management developers, they would come to complain saying, oh, your kitchen's smelly, that won't do. And not Swire Properties, right, but other companies do that. Yes, it is indeed very difficult. But knowing the difficulty doesn't mean that we would avoid this problem. We try to be more understanding. We try to do our best, right? Sometimes the government would force you in certain ways, right? They for example, they have a solid waste levy. If you do not segregate your waste, they would charge you. But this is difficult because if you can't hire people, whenever in an institution, the boss is just thinking, is the brain, but when it comes to the frontline staff, they are the hands, they don't really want to do it. Like, this is a difficult question, and we need university people to think of a solution. Yeah, I think what the gentleman referred to is on a human level. On a human level, you're always influenced by the environment, right? Do you have enough shifts? Does the boss give you good pay? But if you take a step back, look at it from a higher level, Hong Kong as a city, we are actually a rather wasteful city in terms of food. If you look at the statistics, or say when we eat chicken, seafood, or pork, we are triple of the world average per capita. If you combine all meats and seafoods, every one of us, on average, every year, we eat 189 kilograms per capita. You may say to yourself, no, I'm not eating that much. That's also about the stuff which expires in supermarkets. And in the restaurants, in the kitchens, there's like all these frozen meats which are unrecognizable anymore. Or if you look at your own fridge, like how much food are you throwing away? And that's where the waste comes from. So, in our own awareness, right? Actually, every day we are creating waste. It's not just the restaurant. So this is something that we have to be aware of culturally. We are the number one in the world, right? 189 kilograms of waste per capita. The world average is 62. If you're not eating that much, that means you've wasted that much. So as just an average human being, if you are aware of these things, there are a lot of things you could do. It's not just restaurants, any operation, in retail as well. There are a lot of things we can do. Yeah, your question is very interesting. As a restaurant owner, right, I was thinking the efficiencies of recycling. Could this be one of the KPIs when you measure the performance of your restaurants, other than just the bottom line, service quality, etc.? Yes, that is. I actually do that at our company, right? At our group, all our food waste, like before we throw it away, we would weigh it, right? We don't have the money to hire an IT company to create an AI system, but we have a rough estimate. Like every day, every restaurant is aware of how much waste they dispose of. Like we would compare it horizontally and vertically. What is wasted more, what is wasted less, which restaurant wastes most, and if the big waster, we would do more work there. Like year on year compared, are you wasting more or wasting less? So we would compare that with a restaurant. So this go back to the offcuts and example I gave, right? So this is something that we could do. And I think industry peers, you can also do this as well. This is not that difficult. Yeah, perhaps we could incentivize this rate. If your company's like KPI is good, then Simon will give you a special bonus. Yes, right? Yeah, I do give a special bonus, right? Like, are you trying to advertise for me? Because we do have a monthly bonus, and in my monthly bonus, there are like various KPIs, like it come to like saving your gross profit margin, saving power costs, etc. You know, even less accidents, right? You give a bonus for no accidents as well. It's not a lot of money, right? But if you get all the bonuses, it's like 10 to 20% of your monthly salary. But you can't get it all, right? It's very difficult to be perfect. But at least we remind them to do better. So industrial accidents, right? I remind them, be careful, right? If you, cut your fingers, that's a problem. So I hope to achieve that. Thank you for your sharing. Are there any further questions?
Yes, I do. I have a question here. Woody said a moment ago, 50 restaurants are cooperating with you regarding the recyclable lunch boxes. That we have 16,000 restaurants. That Simon has dreamed that these 16,000 restaurants that will be adopting this. Now let's say half, roughly half, 8,000 are going to be using this. How are you going to be doing it? Not just for Woody, I mean, other people will have to tie in with you. Right, two things here. Right, we have to make it convenient to start with, and early next year, there will be liaison with the developers to see how the reverse vending machine can be placed. We are liaising with JLL and Henderson Land on Lam Fong. We just had meetings with them yesterday. They're quite interested in this idea. That's point number one. Second, the restaurants. We have to make sure that the restaurants are willing to give away these recyclable lunch boxes. So we have to get these two pain points out of the way. And they need to use these kind of recyclable lunch boxes for the whole chain. And we have to make sure that they're stackable. They can be stacked up. And this is something we are looking into. Well, it's not fair to put this question to him because you're putting a lot of pressure on them. They managed this 50 after much effort. We need to have a lot of resources, and the resources are not feasible. They have so many machines that have to clean them. It costs a lot of money. And this is funded by the ECF or the government. And this is not a sustainable process. You need to have money pumped in before they would be able to cope for 2 years. If ECF cuts the funding, they cannot do it anymore. So you can imagine how difficult it is. For this to be rolled out across the board, it's going to be costing a lot of resources. So it's a question of a value judgment, whether it's worth it. Right? A fortnight ago, we discussed with the EPD. They said that we did a good job before I even started. So they buy this idea because for lunch boxes, the recycle rate is 0. If we can get 30%, that is quite a lot, actually. Like Simon said, for this to be sustainable, I mean, we need the government subsidy. So is it related to delivery services or I mean, is it to do with the takeaway business? Right, it's all a matter of habit. Yes, this is precisely what I said. I am Ophelia from the SME Association. A lot of lunch boxes are used for takeaway. I am doing the health food in Tsim Sha Tsui. We would invite the restaurants to join the scheme where the patrons would bring their own containers. Now, we have seen a lot of lunch boxes being dumped on the landfill. I mean, if I bring my own container, it would be good because you don't have to recycle them. I think we have to start with people's behavior. If I go in with my own lunchbox, I would clean my own lunchbox, but it would be a lot simpler. I think we can start many different things in parallel. I hope Simon would subscribe to this idea. Many eateries really want to consider this idea. They like to follow suit, and they would give a discount to people who come in with the container. They give a 5% discount to the customers. I think if everyone is pulling in the same direction, I think we can cut a lot of the lunch boxes. It's just like the drinks containers, and many people are coming in with their own containers for drinks. Yeah, thanks very much for your suggestion. You are doing for a very good cause. I mean, if I tell you that I never tried it, would you believe me? I think I have to tell you the difficulties. I am all in favor of environmental cause. I, I don't need the cutlery from the restaurants. We tried this. If you come in with your own box, I give you a discount, but we fail because a lot of complaints are flooding in, and they said that how do you know that the customer's lunchbox is COVID free, and it is clean enough? That they said that if you do this, I'm going to stop. I'm going to take my business elsewhere. So we stopped this during COVID. That since nighttime dining was banned, then I would allow the patron to come in with the lunchbox. They can scoop it in. But I got prosecuted by the EPD. Now, he wasn't even allowed to scoop in the food on the premises. So I stopped that during COVID. It's very difficult. I think now, right now, it is doable. If I allow the patrons to scoop in the food, it is doable, but it is difficult. If I've got a long line of people outside, would they be queuing up for an awful long time before they go in and scoop in the food? Now, for small businesses, it is okay, I think, but for larger restaurants, it is difficult because there is a system there. It is difficult to get it off the ground. I hope you would appreciate that it's not as if we never tried before. I mean, not my company, the F&B business did try that. But even with the difficulties, it doesn't mean that we should stop doing it. We have to try something else. Yes, this is the best path, I'm sure. But when it comes to takeout food, it is difficult because we can't really ask the courier to come in with the patron's container. It is difficult indeed. One more question. Hi, my question is directed at Simon and Anita. I'm Louisa. I am at the Upstream. I produce the cutlery myself. You talked a lot about the food ingredients and disposable things. I'm right in the middle. What about the cutlery? Now for the for the plates, for example, the crockery plates. I mean, if they're chipped, they would be thrown away. How do you see the sustainability? Not the single-use one. Yes, I'm talking about the cutlery, the porcelain, the crockery plates and bowls and so on. Well, I have never looked into this in detail myself, but I noticed that in recent years there are more restaurants that are using the utensils that are not so easy to break. The plastic looks cheap, but these days things are more sophisticated. I mean, the plastic ones can look like crockery, and they're not breakable. And more restaurants tend to use this kind of utensils, and they can be used for longer. Earlier, I saw a Dai Pai Dong using my plates. I'm not saying that they are wrong, but they're using plates with my logo on. Right Now for the cutlery, I think in the near term, this is not something that can be resolved because there is fine dining, and I don't think you can use the plastic kind of materials, and you have to use really expensive plates. It is difficult because it's a question of whether the stewards can handle the plates carefully. They are sustainable if you're careful with all these plates, porcelain plates. They can last for a long time. And depending on the colors, some can scratch very easily, and you cannot do fine dining with the scratched porcelain. Some porcelain plates are more expensive, but they can last for longer. Comparatively, those that scratch more easily would be cheaper. So like Simon said, you can buy a $200 plate or $1,000 plate. So you cannot prove that the $200 one can last longer. So at the present moment, it is got. I mean, it is not on a collision course with sustainable development if it is handled with care. I think that's about time we bring this to a close. We have covered so many different subjects like cross-sectoral collaboration, staff training, awareness of the consumer. Lastly, this is the last question, a minor question. What expectations do you have for the F&B trade going forward if we are moving towards circularity? What top tips do you have for the trade, please? Woody, please. Well, you don't allow me time to think about it. I'm selfish. I would think about my takeaway platform. We like people to use the recyclable utensils. We would like them to experience this and to make it more popular. Yes, make it popular. I don't think you should bring too much pressure on you. The planet is big. You may not be able to save it, but I think still you have to contribute yourself. You don't have to be despondent. Things are changing. Now let me tell you an old story. It's a matter of value judgment. My dad told me that when he was doing the restaurant, if people order expensive dishes, they would give away the ivory chopsticks, and they have to register the ivory chopsticks, but they are not sustainable. It is not the same value judgment. Nobody can be bothered using ivory. The world is changing. We have to work harder. Right? I think with good circular economy, you can have better development, and this is something that is well worth making investment in. We need collaboration with upstream, downstream, and all your peers. Let's put on a thinking cap and work hard in this direction. We can build resilience. Anita, I think we have to be a responsible self. To your patron, to your colleague, you have to treat them the way you treat your family members. You have to not be wasteful. We have to start like this. Right, start from ourselves, start changing the paradigm. I mean, there must be a paradigm shift. All right, a round of applause. That's all about time we have. Thank you very much for the sharing. I hand it back to the MC. Thank you so much. Please stay. We'd like to have a group photo. It's a rare occasion to have so many heavyweights with us. So we have the photographer there. Let's move the chairs out of the way. Get ready for the group photo.
好啦，呢
Okay, so we'd also like to invite both our keynote speakers, Nadine and Winnie and Professor Lam, to join us in a group photo. Perhaps the ladies could stand front and center. Okay, everybody look at the camera. Thank you very much. So please stay on stage. In order to thank you for your participation, we have prepared a small present, and Professor Lam is going to give it out on our behalf. And this is actually one of our new brands, Local Farm. It's a locally farmed products, and all these products are made from local ingredients and handmade by locals. It's also very sustainable. So perhaps you could go home and enjoy this with your friends and family. Perhaps one more photo.
係啦，好，望住中間，係啦，唔該晒，唔該晒，好啦，俾多啲掌聲，我哋所。
So another round of applause for all our guests. Thank you for your participation today. Please be seated.
咁經過今日。
So after today's events, I hope that we can inspire everyone to think about how to participate in this revolution. And this is also one of the most important missions in our scheme, the Partnership for Sustainability Leadership in Business. We hope that we could establish a platform to gather strength from all facets of life to start a conversation. And in this year, in September, we also have a new round of our scheme. And at the same time, we surrounding the themes of waste management, recycling, and upcycling as our theme. We obtained support from various large enterprises like the Sino Group and New World Development to support us to work all across the entire F&B ecosystem. We look forward to be able to share our experiences with you next year. So this is almost a wrap for us, but we still have a networking session for all the members on site. Perhaps you could talk to our guests and learn a bit more. We hope that we would see you once more in our next lecture. Thank you.